Welcome to R&R Showtime with Robert
and Ryan.
And tonight, it's the end of the year, so we'll be doing some top 10 movies of the entire year.
2021. What a year it's been.
Indeed.
I've seen a lot of movies this year, and that's made me happy. Big change from 2020, when the only movies I saw in theater was Tenet and something else. I think I saw something other than Tenet.
I think I saw a few towards the end of the year. But yeah, 2020, there was like a plague or something going on. So
I've heard of that. I've heard that mentioned before.
Indeed. Yeah. So before we get into our top 10 tonight, just one small note is that there are no Oscar nominee movies.
None of the movies that were nominated for Best Picture this year were included, despite some of them coming out in 2021, because we've already talked about them all. So if we could include them on the list, The Father would be on my list, Minari would be on my list, and I think Judas and the Black Messiah might be on my list.
Yeah, so, I mean, some of those might make it onto mine as well, but yeah, they're not on here. So these are just, anything but those.
Yeah, if you want to hear our thoughts on those movies, we did a podcast on it.
Link below. Ryan will add that link later.
Okay, now I guess I got to do that. I've literally never done that for any other podcast.
Well, now there's a link below because I said so.
Okay, hopefully I remember that. If I don't comment that I forgot, and I'll add it later.
Yeah. Make sure he does it right. Okay, well, we're just going to get started. We're starting from the bottom and working our way all the way up to the top. So coming in at number 10, Ryan, what is your number 10 movie of 2021?
So we actually briefly talked about this movie. Well, I didn't. You did, because at the time I had not seen it yet. But my number 10 film is Encanto.
Okay, yeah. I mean, that doesn't seem strange to me. I saw it and I thought it was pretty good.
And I think it actually helped that I heard your impression of it beforehand, because you were a little more muted on it, and I feel like going into the movie I was probably going to be a little muted on it, because I just don't feel like there was a lot of buzz around it, like as like the new Disney movie coming out, like and not all the time do Disney movies get all that much hype, and partially it's a pandemic, so like movies in general are like not getting, like there's not a lot of big buzz around movies coming out to theaters unless it's a Marvel movie. And even then, like, it has to be like Spider-Man at this point for people to come out. But I went into Encanto, kind of measured in expectations. And what I got was a movie with really good music. And sometimes that's just enough for me. Surface Pressure and We Don't Talk About Bruno in particular are just like great songs that I've listened to multiple times since. And I actually feel like in that way, this movie benefits benefits in the same way that Moana did, because I think Moana had a fantastic soundtrack, and this similarly has a really good soundtrack. Both happen to have been written largely by Lin-Manuel Miranda, so maybe that has something to do with it as well. I don't know, but yeah, like just the sounds of the movie are good. Some of the visuals in the movie are really stunning to watch on the big screen. It's like in the musical sequences in particular. The whole like concept behind the magic of the family madrigal is just really unique. And I actually think I talked about this with you off mic about how the plot of the movie is interesting. It doesn't have a villain. It's just kind of about like family dynamics. And I appreciate it for that. It's a unique film, and it's a unique Disney film, and yeah.
I mean, that was one of the reasons that I felt like the movie lacked. It was because there weren't enough stakes in the movie for me. But I still thought it was a good movie. Like, I enjoyed it and did not feel bad about going to see it. So, not crazy that it's on your list.
Yeah.
So my number 10. And you might feel a type of way about this, is The Green Knight.
I do not feel any type of way about that, because like when I was like ranking movies, I'm trying to be a little more I tried to be a little more objective with this list, but like as so far as I can. And so I tried to give my number scores. This is more based off of my number scores than my letter rankings. So like even when I looked at the Green Knight, I was like, this movie is like I don't like an 8.8. It's like high 8, whatever. But like entertainment wise is like a C plus to me.
Right.
I didn't like it, but
Yeah.
you.
Yeah, I mean I get it. I mean, coming out of that movie theater, I don't know if we did did we do a podcast on that one specifically?
No,
or we
we
just
did,
mentioned it, right?
we
mentioned we
we
mentioned it in something, I think.
It never came on the podcast because we didn't do the summer recap that we were planning to.
Yeah. Nonetheless, basically, I mean, when we saw this movie coming out of it, my dad and Ryan were like, "What the fuck was that?"
Well, I didn't say what the fuck with that. I was like, this was boring. Dad said it was the worst movie he'd ever seen.
Yeah, so they felt, well, I actually really enjoyed it still, but I also was like a little confused by it in some ways. But even just driving home that night and thinking about it, talking about it, and then coming back to talk with my brother later and looking up the original story that it's kind of based on, all of it actually worked so much better. Like, the more I thought about it, the better the movie was. And honestly, I was very impressed by, I mean, the A24 sort of aesthetic. I would just enjoyed it kind of for that. And I was trying to understand the themes as I watched it. I was really trying to pay attention. And after the fact, I liked it more. So, and that, I mean, that movie just stuck out to me. I remember when I saw it, when I was looking at reviewing the movies for the year, I was like, honestly, that movie is a movie I enjoyed and I want to put it on this list. So, yep, I guess my number 10 spot.
No, I totally get that. In a lot of the time, I do like the A24 aesthetic. Sometimes it's a little too out there for me. One movie, actually, there's an A24 movie that almost made my list, and I'm going to address it as an honorable mention. But yeah, like I recognize that it was a good movie. It just didn't do anything for me. But again, much as you said with Encanto, I do not begrudge you putting it on the list. Honestly, I feel like I might have guessed you put it higher.
Yeah, Encanto I did consider on this list as I was looking at movies. It made it into the short list that then became my top 10. So, like not crazy that you put it on your list, and I thought it was a good movie as well. But yeah, Green Knight makes me my number 10.
All right, well, what's your number 9?
So my number 9 is going to be Ghostbusters Afterlife.
Not a bad choice at all.
Yeah, and in some ways I was like, should I have ranked this higher? And I couldn't rank it higher because there were movies I enjoyed more, but this one truly, I think we discussed this a little bit on one of the podcasts, but
it was in our fall recap, I think.
Yeah, this movie I enjoyed this movie as being solid on its own, but also reverent of the original Ghostbusters movie. I think there's a lot of harsh opinions, and some people might have other ways they looked at it, but for me, I felt like it took from those original movies in a good way and presented it to me, and I really enjoyed that. So
that is very much how I felt in watching it, and I still think it was a quite good movie. I'd still put it pretty high. It's not going to make my list though, because I did hear some of those criticisms, and some of them did hold water to me, and so. And there is something to be said about the nostalgia and the reusing of old things that I've heard used to criticize the new Spider-Man, for example. But I think Spider-Man uses those things better. And I think just having Spider-Man as a comparison to the Ghostbusters movie made the Ghostbusters movie diminish a bit, which I think is an unfair comparison. But just in terms of like the nature of how they work on old properties and nostalgia, quite frankly, I think one of them executes it better. And so that has caused me to, I still think Ghostbusters Afterlife is great. It's still the second best Ghostbusters movie. But yeah.
Well, yeah, that's cool. All right, now what about your number 9?
So before we did this, I did mention to my brother that I kind of cheated and I put one tie on my list. And so my number 9 is a tie. But the reason why I gave it a tie is because really one of these movies is more deserving of the top 10 placement, while the other one I just think needs a shout out, and they happen to be by the same director, and I happened to have given them both the same number score.
That's what the honorable mentions are for, though, Ryan.
But quite frankly, the number score I give to the second movie would have bumped Encanto off my list. But anyways, the two movies are director Edgar Wright's films, Last Night in Soho and The Sparks Brothers. The Sparks Brothers is a movie you may have like seen a trailer for and then just went off in passing. It basically tells the story of this band called Sparks that has existed since like the early 70s and have made 25 studio albums, like hundreds of songs, and you probably never heard of them.
Yep.
But they were a big deal in Europe, and they were a big deal in Los Angeles in the 80s, and they went on to influence a bunch of artists. And just watching the story and how Edgar Wright tells it, it's just kind of like really like excellently done, and it made me want to look into them as a group more, and it made me watch their film that they wrote all the music for, Annette, which would essentially be an honorable mention, but I'm just going to address it here. Annette's a weird movie.
I saw Ryan watching it in the living room of our house and just was casually like seeing what was going on, and it looked like a weird movie.
Yeah,
and I was like, I don't have any interest in this weird movie at all. I mean, it had Adam Driver in it, and
Marion Cotillard from Inception and Dark Knight Rises.
Yeah, so there's people in it that you might want to see, but I was just like, I don't know if I have any interest in this.
Howard from Big Bang Theory.
Yeah.
But anyways, that Sparks Brothers, interesting documentary. Not the only documentary in my top 10, but Last Night in Soho, more so.
More so.
Yeah. It was just kind of like a treat to watch, a good cinematic experience. Some of the directing techniques, so good. I think we already talked about this in the fall recap, so maybe I don't need to go into it too much, but Anya Taylor-Joy, always a delight to see. The sounds, the music, some of the later on like scary stuff like actually got me to jump at one point. And I just think they're both really good movies. If I was going to remove one of them, it would be the Sparks Brothers, because I don't know how much of it is a recency bias. I watched it this week. But Last Night in Soho absolutely deserves to be my number 9.
Right on. What about your number 8?
My number 8, and maybe it deserved to be higher, but my number 8 is Spider-Man: No Way Home.
Okay, wow.
And what's there not to be said about this movie? God, I love it. We did a whole podcast on it. So
that's what he started in by saying, but it's his number 8. So
I mean, but I'm trying to be more fair, and there are movies above it that I think are like objectively better. But look, the nostalgia factor that Ghostbusters had, I think Spider-Man has, but better. And the acting performances, I rewatched it, saw it again. A lot of the criticisms that you had for it, I felt like had actually been addressed in the text of the film. Maybe not to the best degree, like how Doctor Strange says, "Oh, we use that spell all the time. Remember that thing that happened?" No, I don't. The spell worked.
Mm-hmm.
So little things like that became less of a big deal on the second watch. And also Tom Holland, like there are parts of this movie where he's acting, like the scene, without going into spoilers, there's a scene where it's like he's had the worst day of his life, and he's watching something on the screen basically tell him, recount the bad stuff that's happened to him, essentially. And you just see on his face he's like bruised and bloodied and wet, and it's just such a good movie.
Hey man, Spider-Man was a good movie, and
yeah,
I don't have any arguments with it being in a top 10 list for this year. So
I hope to see it on your list. I don't necessarily expect it.
We'll see.
Yeah,
maybe.
So number 8 for you.
My number 8, let me double check my list here, though I think I know what it is Candyman.
That is a great choice, honestly. Yeah. No, yeah, good.
Yeah. I will say that I am not a big fan of horror movies. I, in general, do not really go to see them. Like, however, Candyman's trailers were really good. They led me to believe that there was a little more story to it, but also we were going to get some pretty good kills. And yeah, I think it delivered just a good story, something I could enjoy while still being, giving the people that like the slasher and the blood and, getting to see some good kills. We still got some of that. We still got some of the gruesomeness, but just a solid, interesting story that kind of has you on the edge of your seat in some ways. And I just remember really liking it. So it makes my number 8 spot.
Well, what's your number 7?
Number 7, Black Widow.
Wow. I again, that was not meant in any sort of judgmental way. I did not expect Black Widow to be on your list, honestly, but I think it's fair.
Yeah, see, I was looking at this whole list of movies, right? And what I did is I tried to just take kind of like my tried to do like a thin slice as I looked. I just kind of scanned through them and just was like, bam, that one. And Black Widow made that sort of just quick, first thought. It made it on my short list, right? And then I went through and I had more than 10 things on my short list. So I went through and I ranked things and I was like, man, Black Widow is good. I had some criticisms of it, and it's not like my favorite Marvel movie ever, but it was good. And I mean, it was like solidly better. And I have maybe even like sort of I don't know. I really enjoy superhero movies. I like that all the narratives of it. I like how they all tie in together. And I mean, so I might have a little bit of bias in how I look at this, but my list is more subjective. Some of these movies make it on here because they are objectively good movies, even if I don't they don't have to be my favorite movies at all. But I did enjoy Black Widow, and I think it was a pretty solid movie overall.
Honestly, I think David Harbour and Florence Pugh's performances in the movie alone sort of warrant like appreciation for like just creating these genuinely great characters that we did not know of before this movie, but instantly kind of fall in love with. And I mean, one of them's a freaking communist bad guy that used to fight Captain America, maybe.
Yeah, maybe, kind of, fan theories all out there. Maybe he did find him, maybe he didn't.
We'll never know. But yeah, Black Widow, great movie.
Yeah. So what's your number 7?
So after talking about comic book movies, the MCU in particular, this is the highest ranking MCU movie for me. One of 2 on this list. Mm-hmm. Shang-Chi.
Right on.
Yeah. And the Legend of the Ten Rings, I think, is the full title.
I'm glad it made it on your list.
Yeah, it's a great movie. It is better than Spider-Man. I think if I was being more subjective, Spider-Man would be above it because I just love Spider-Man so much. But I think Shang-Chi as a whole is a better movie, and the action in it is some of the best action in any MCU movie, quite frankly. That scaffolding scene in particular, and some of the martial arts, the beginning one with his father and mother, just like kind of a beauty to behold. The bus scene is dynamic, action packed, great. We did a whole podcast on this one, so
yeah, we don't have to spend too much time. But again, this if this wasn't in your top 10, I would be arguing with you. So I mean,
I fully expect it to be on your list. This was one movie where I was like, this is going to be on both of our lists.
I'll drop a small hint. I like it better than Black Widow.
I knew you did. Honestly, I expect that you like Spider-Man more than Black Widow. That's my hope. I'm hoping Spider-Man's on your list.
Yeah, I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah. So, all right.
There's number 7. What about your number 6?
So number 6, for me, God, I love this movie. I mean, I love all these movies, but I love this movie. My number 6 is Luca.
I didn't even watch Luca, and I've looked at it so many times on Disney Plus and like meant to watch it, but me, again, another like semi-bias of mine, and it's not that I don't like them, but I don't I don't really gravitate towards animated movies in general. I don't gravitate towards Disney movies. But I've kind of meant to watch it. Like it looks like it's probably good. I mean, it's Disney.
I wish they released it in theaters because I think that would have made a better excuse to go out and go see it.
Yeah.
I would have gone out and seen it had they released it in theaters, but they didn't. It was direct to Disney Plus, and it can only be watched on Disney Plus. I assume you could buy the DVD at this point. But
well, give me a little bit about it. I mean, like help make me more interested in watching it.
Well, here's the one thing I will say. I don't know if you will enjoy it as much as I did, because Luca basically tells the story of this sea monster kid who is fascinated by the world above him, and he meets this other sea monster kid who shows him that they can go up on land, and when they go on land, they look like they're humans, and his parents don't want him to go on land, and they're going to send him away, but they decide to run away and live on land, and they just want to enjoy the things they enjoy together as these new friends. And it's a coming of age movie set in Italy with sea monsters. And on that level, it's an entertaining, cute movie. Has moments where you, as an audience, might cry at or get teary eyed and what have you. What I think elevates it for me, and Disney has tried to deny it. The director has tried to deny it, but there's very clear to me and to other people who have watched it, very clear queer subtext of the movie. So much so, like, the being a sea monster is like being in the closet, and he has this young male friend that his parents don't want him to be with and don't want him to see, and they're going to send him off so that he can't do the stuff that they don't approve of. And if you watch the movie, you may pick up on it, you may not. I've seen people be a little more lukewarm on the movie because they don't pick up on it. And it doesn't resonate with them.
Did you pick up on that on your first watch, or did you hear about it afterwards or before and then have that keyed in?
I mean, I picked up on it from looking at the trailers.
Oh, I don't know if I've ever seen trailers for it. I've just seen. I mean, I don't.
Or I just think there was, but going into the movie, there was this concept of it looking like an animated Call Me by Your Name, because they're both set in Italy, and that's kind of it. They're visually similar in ways, and it's about the relationship between these two males, but it's not as gay as Call Me by Your Name. But going into the movie and watching it, if you are queer, you're gonna pick up on it.
Well, I mean, movies are art, and art is subjective, and it's what it means to you and what you get from it. So if you got, I mean, whether the director wants to deny or not, if you got that from it and it speaks to you, then all the more significance.
Yeah, the one thing I ultimately have to say about this movie is that I wish I could have watched it as a kid, because I think it would have meant a lot more to me then.
Well, that's cool.
Your number 6?
My number 6. One that's already been mentioned before on your list, Last Night in Soho.
I was also hoping this would be on your list.
Oh man, everything that he already said, right? But one thing that I enjoy in movies is when there's some kind of mystery and I don't know what's going on, right? It engages my brain, and that's something I like from movies. And this movie, the little twist at the end, I did not see it coming, right? And normally I do see movies coming, but maybe in this one I wasn't trying to figure it out too hard, because they definitely dropped a lot of clues. There were good foreshadowing and clues along the way that I could have figured it out. And I like that it artfully does that. It gave me the tools to have figured out if I wanted to deduce it.
It is one of those things. I think I did. I can't remember how long it took me to figure it out, but I think I did prior to the reveal. But it is one of those things that should be more obvious than it is.
Yeah.
When you really think about it.
Yeah, it is. Reflecting on it, I was like, yeah, they definitely were dropping lots of hints and foreshadowing. And I think maybe I even kind of had the thought of it, but I got thrown off of it at some point. Yeah. But they do just a solid job at the misdirect, at the look over here at this one, and then it's not that. And because of that, because they did that to me, I was like, wow, good job. Along with the general, just how well they do the suspense and some of the visual cinematography that they do with the dreams and everything are just really, really well done. I will say one criticism I had is like the shadowy man things were kind of like, whatever. I wasn't very impressed by that, but it wasn't, like it wasn't bad.
See, the shadowy men was not an overall fan of until there was one scene where they used it as a jump scare that I found very effective. And then I was like, okay, that I sort of bought into it more after that.
I think I know which one you're talking about. Yeah. And that gave it a little more.
I believe they're in the library.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That movie though, it really just stuck out with me. I really enjoyed it. Just especially for those elements and everything that Ryan already mentioned. So
yeah, it's a solid film. What's your number 5? We're in the top 5 now.
Top 5. And it's funny, if anybody listened to our podcast before and then they listen to this, they'll go, how is it that these are in different places? But Spider-Man is my number 5.
I am not surprised.
Right. And I think it's because Ryan's, list is maybe a little more loaded up with other movies that he likes, and that maybe for him, Spider-Man is the higher ranked of your Marvel movies, right?
Well, Shang-Chi is the highest.
Oh no, it is the highest one. But yeah, so this is not another hint. This is not the highest ranked of my MCU movies on this top 10 list.
Not surprising.
But as much as I might have critiqued it, and it might have seemed like I was, dogging on it or whatever, I was just, maybe in some ways I was just being Ryan's foil, and I was trying to be critical of the movie because, hey man, they'd had a high bar. Like, it needs to do good. You have a lot going for it. But that movie was great. I said it in our podcast that I was exclaiming and I was excited and I was like, oh my God, this, that. But yeah, it just had all the same elements that made me excited that everybody else was excited about. And I was excited, but I had to be a little critical of it. So, but it still makes it on my list. And MCU movies and superhero movies are really great. And so, yeah, it makes it relevant. I mean, in the top 5 of my top 10.
Yeah, I'm happy to see it there.
Excellent. So what about your number 4?
My number 5.
Oh, your number 5. Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah.
Oopsie.
So I think I, more than most people, really appreciate animated movies. And there are 3 of them on this list. I've already named 2 of them. This is the 3rd one. And this is a movie, again, I worry about the recency bias because I watched this movie just a couple of days ago, but I really just looked at the film as it is. And it was hard to really come up with that many things that were in any way a flaw with it. And my number 5 is The Mitchells versus the Machines.
Yeah, I saw you watching a little piece of that again out here in the living room. It looked interesting. I don't know I can just assume some of the plot from the small clip I saw and what it's called. So
yeah. So if you're unfamiliar, basically following this sort of dysfunctional family in a robot apocalypse, they are one of the few who did not get like snatched up by the robots immediately. And so they take it upon themselves to sort of do something about it. And the main character of the movie is this teenage daughter who has always been like different. Like, she's more artsy, into film and stuff. And it's right before she's going to go off to college that this whole thing happens. And there's this family dispute between her and her dad because her dad doesn't understand her. And it's all these sort of familiar sort of tropes, but I feel like this movie kind of went under the rug because I didn't even think to watch it until I was listening to some YouTube channel I like mention it as one of the better films of the year, and compare it to another film made by the same animation studio, because this movie is by Sony Animation, I believe. And so one of their most recent big projects was Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. So I don't think it's that level of good, but I can see in this movie some of the bones of that, and how the animation style is really good, and like the depth of character, and like I really think that people should give The Mitchells versus the Machines a chance. Again, Netflix movie. Go see it if you have the time.
Well, on to your number 4.
Yes, my number 4 is the newest film by Paul Thomas Anderson, Licorice Pizza.
Wow.
I yeah, I I recognize it's not a film for everybody, and honestly, I feel like a lot of his movies are like that. If you're not familiar with him by name, the movies I've seen of him have been There Will Be Blood, Phantom Thread, Boogie Nights, and he Punch Drunk Love, I believe, is a movie. I haven't seen it, but has Adam Sandler in it. He's had a lot of movies that are critically acclaimed, and quite frankly, of the ones that I've seen, I recognize that they're good, but they don't really connect to me. This is of the movies of his that I've seen. This is the one I've enjoyed the most, and I think it really is just kind of like a slice of life movie. It's kind of weird. It feels kind of aimless, but it just draws something out. It has this quality to it with the relationship with these characters. It's such a quirky thing, and there's just something about it that really works. Bradley Cooper's in it for a fairly brief scene. I would say it's the standout of the film.
Yeah, it's like a few scenes in a row, but yeah, I mean, when I saw this movie, there is some charm to this movie, with the like sort of the dance that these two have throughout, the two, the main sort of characters.
Played by Alana Haim, and I don't remember his name, but the main kid in this is the son of
Seymour
Philip
Hoffman?
Seymour Hoffman. Yeah.
I just remember his last name was Hoffman, and I assumed it was his son.
And Alana Haim, for those who are familiar with the group Haim, it's a trio of sisters, and her sisters are in the movie, and her parents are in the movie. They play her whole family.
Wow, really?
Yeah.
Oh, and it's actually her. Wow. Okay. Wow.
Yeah, her actual parents and actual sisters. I guess Paul Thomas Anderson has like directed some of their videos before, so they had like a working relationship before this. But this is like, I believe this is sort of both of their like first movies. So to see, they're very talented actors.
Yeah. Hey, I appreciated the acting that they were doing. The thing is, it's like this is maybe just not the kind of movie for me, because the movie is like 2.5 hours long.
Yeah.
And I mean, I don't know what point time wise in the movie, but at one point I was like kind of just waiting for the movie to be over, and it just, again, it is kind of aimless. I think Ryan mentioned that already. Yeah. And that's not kind of, I like, in some ways I like to see a story that's sort of telling me something. I like to maybe interpret some themes. I like to, be communicated an idea or get to some sort of resolution in ways. And this movie doesn't. I mean, the resolution is that they end up, spoiler, getting together. Like,
yeah,
through, after all this back and forth. And it's interesting to watch in ways, but it's just not, I mean, in some ways, it's almost like it's just not the kind of thing I want to watch.
In the vein of other coming of age movies, I feel like they can be kind of hit or miss based on the person and based on how they perceive this coming of age narrative. But I honestly, like, if I was being more subjective, this would be lower. It still might make my top 10 though, because I still think it's just a good movie. But like, there are movies below this that I enjoyed more, but I couldn't deny the sort of craft and the technique of this film. And I mentioned the Bradley Cooper scene. There's a scene associated with it where Alana's character is having to back up a vehicle. I won't go too much more into detail, but the way that scene is done, it has this like tension to it that's fairly thrilling for what it is. And yeah, it's not for everyone. I recognize that, but it's a good movie.
Yeah, and I admit that it's just kind of like, it doesn't work for me, and I can see how it won't work for a lot of people. But I also not like, I don't want to say it's a bad movie. Like, I think there's a lot of things about it. I think the director actually does a pretty good job. The acting is good, but yeah, not for me.
Yeah. So what's your number 4?
My number 4 is going to be The Last Duel.
It's a good movie.
And the reason, in some ways I looked at it, and it's the A+ movie for me for the year. Like, this I don't know if it's not going to be nominated for awards or already was, but like it should win some awards. It's and hey, there's movies above this that I like more. Like I would go see some of these movies. I would see movies below this again, right? I'm not saying I would go see Last Duel again, but it's such a good movie. And it's got stuff that like anybody can enjoy, right? Like, I mean, if you just kind of like violence, like there's violence in this movie, just gratuitous, bloody, like, guys getting like stabbed and cut up. I mean, but just that the story and the way that it's shot is just so good. It like made a mark on me. And I was like, this has to be my top 10. And even if some of these other movies I maybe enjoyed in some ways more, like it was so significant. It was just such a solid movie. It placed number 4 on my list.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you. We talked about it before. And it's one of those things where there are things that I could potentially see as a criticism with the movie, but it almost feels like intentional in a way. And the structure of the movie, the 3 perspective sort of Rashomon style structure to the movie, I think it is just an interesting narrative device. So yeah, I appreciate seeing it on your list. I think it's a good movie.
So my number 3 is Free Guy. And I was looking throughout these movies, man, and I just was like, wow, that movie was just fun. It was such a fun movie, and I think it like perfectly sort of uses pop culture in a non like
interestingly
abusive way, like to say. I mean, it's very clear and upfront about the fact like it's like a GTA sort of like spin-off. And straight up uses like a bunch of pop culture references and things, but in such a tongue-in-cheek way that's like, while it fully utilizes those elements, it just works. It works so well, and it's just a fun story. It's just so I enjoyed it so much. It's just so it's honestly like the same story you've seen before, but just told in an interesting way, in a kind of unique ideal. But I don't know. It's weird to say that it's unique, but it's also literally a bunch of like things that are being reused. Like it's a similar story to stories we've heard before. It's a bunch of literally like elements from other things that they're all bringing together to create something that's actually unique and still fun.
It's hard to go wrong with Ryan Reynolds.
Yeah.
And something I did want to know interesting about these 2 movies in a row, both have the same female star, Jodie Comer,
yes,
in very different roles.
Absolutely. Yeah. Totally. Different spectrums of movies.
And I mean, she wears different wigs in one of them, but
she wears a different hat in both.
Yeah. So so she's almost unrecognizable if you don't already like recognize her. But yeah, Free Guy's a great movie. It's a fun movie. I don't think I expected it to be on your list this high.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, yeah. I remember thinking, I was like looking at the order of things and I was like, yeah, man, that movie was just so fun. It was so good. Like, very subjective pick right here. Like, I can't say it's an objectively great movie or better than a bunch of these, but I just remember being very entertained the whole time, and it just coming to a nice conclusion. Like the movie just worked, so it placed high.
I don't blame you for placing it high.
What about your 3?
My number 3, and this is probably going to be one of the most surprising to be on my list because I don't think that many people watched it. And this is the highest ranking movie on my list that I had to watch at home. Well, I could have watched it in theater. I just chose to watch it at home. And it's also the highest ranking documentary on my list. My number 3 is The Summer of Soul, a film by Questlove, detailing this multi-day music festival that went on at the same time as Woodstock did, the original Woodstock. But this one just happened to feature Black artists. I don't know if it was entirely Black artists, because I haven't watched it since I saw it this summer. This is also probably the movie I saw the longest ago, other than Luca, on my list. But it's just kind of like this celebration of music. It's the celebration of this sort of singular event and this like sort of communal thing. There are parts of it that are like like semi-religious experiences. I say semi, like they're actually just singing like gospel music at certain points. And I think if you just have an appreciation for this kind of music and the genres, because it's not all just one blanket kind of music that's being played, or these like artists, some of which are like legendary. I mean, even the ones that aren't as legendary are notable, impactful artists. It's just kind of this wonderful experience of music.
Wow, interesting. I'd never even heard of that. So crazy that it's on your top 10 list. And I appreciate that a documentary makes it on your top 10 list.
Well, technically, Sparks Brothers was also on
Oh,
here.
yeah. I appreciate that you would even incorporate those. I am not a documentary person. I don't really, I mean, it's a good way to impart some information and learn something about something new, but I'm just not like,
yeah,
I don't really.
I'm not always a documentary person. So they have to be particularly well crafted for them to stand out to me. Because a lot of the time you can just watch a documentary and be like, oh, that was like a TV program documentary. That felt like a behind the music. But this movie uses a lot of like archival footage in a way that is just really, yeah, I think it's a quite good experience. And if you have the time, I think it might be on Netflix still. That's how I watched it before. If you have the time, it's not something that takes all the brain power in the world to watch. If you just want to like sit back and like watch some good musical performances and learn a little bit, I recommend it.
Right on. Well, that leads us in to your number 2.
My number 2. And you have not seen this movie.
Mm-hmm.
I went and saw this movie and immediately tried to tell my brother to see this movie while he still could in XD, or at the very least to just see the movie.
Is it gone? Is it not in theaters anymore?
It's still in theaters.
I'll go watch it this dang weekend.
It was a big box office bomb. Tragic, but it's a tragic movie. Steven Spielberg's West Side Story. It's so I never really fully watched the original West Side Story. I
don't know anything about West Side Story. I just know it's a Romeo and Juliet-esque sort of story.
And yeah, that's what it is. And so I've seen clips of it, and I'm aware of some of the music from it. But it never really seemed like a movie that would really appeal to me. And I went and saw it in XD because I was like, I bet it's going to be like a fun, like big musical experience. Like Steven Spielberg, he's going to put some effort into it, and it'll be at least enjoyable to watch. In the Heights is another musical from this year that I went and saw, big screen, had a good time. And I went into West Side Story prepared to be like, okay, is this going to be as good as In the Heights was? And kind of thinking that it probably wasn't going to be, or that they might be about the same quality. But this movie has, first of all, this movie is going to win Oscars. That's for damn sure. Best Picture, maybe. But for sure, there are going to be some best acting Oscars going around. I don't have the list of actors' names, but the actress that plays Anita in the movie, she has the song "America." She's gonna win the Best Supporting Actress Oscar. That, like, I don't see how anyone else could win it. It was the best performance of the year. I looked at her and I was like, this lady's a star. The jet guy, I can't remember his name right now, but the main jet, who's the main guy's friend, he's probably gonna at the very least be nominated for something. It's breathtaking, great, fabulously directed. I wish you had seen it so I could have more to converse about, because I'm just gonna gush about it. It's a really, really good movie, and not enough people are seeing it.
I'll go see it this weekend.
Take Emily with you, because
she said she didn't. That's why I didn't go see it, because she said she didn't want to see it.
Oh, But I mean, here's the thing though, it is still a musical, and I recognize that it's probably not going to be for everyone. Much like a lot of the movies on my list, I wouldn't recommend for everyone. But this is like the best musical I've seen in many years.
Well, all right, man. He definitely did tell me to go watch it, so it's really my.
I didn't want to overhype it. Like
I felt like that's what you were doing too. You're like you should just go see it. Is what you're.
And I really just wanted to go on Facebook and be like 10 out of 10. Like, this is my movie of the year. I left the movie theater being like, I think that this is my favorite movie of the year. Mm-hmm. And only isn't number one because I think my number one movie is a little more perfect. One thing that I've heard people say about this movie and criticize it, and I kind of get it, I didn't really agree, is that the lead actor, who I'm forgetting the name of in this moment, maybe I think it's Ansel Elgort, the guy from Baby Driver. People have criticized that he's sort of not as up to par as some of the other acting performances are, as particularly against the Maria character, who is the Juliet character that he is opposite of. She is also fabulously talented, probably going to get nominated for an Oscar. I've heard people say that he's sort of like the weakest link of the movie. But yeah, I really just wanted to go out and sing the praises of this movie, but I also don't want to put it on this pedestal that makes it hard for people to enjoy it as much as I did, because I went in with zero expectations, and maybe that helped me to love it as much as I did. But it was great, and I could see it winning Best Picture.
I think I can go in with a clear mind even after hearing, this from you, and just watch it for what it is.
Yeah.
So, well, that does put some pressure on me to go watch it.
So what's your number two?
My number two. This is this movie, or this list does me and Ryan had agreed it will include Netflix movies, and this is a Netflix movie. And I'm wondering if you did say you thought you might know what it is and you haven't seen it, but this movie is The Harder They Fall.
Oh, I have not seen that.
Yeah,
that's not even what I thought of.
What did you think it was?
I heard there was a movie called The Power of the Dog that looked good.
I haven't even watched that, but it looks great.
Yeah.
I wish I had watched that, and maybe that could have been on this list, but it's got Benedict Cumberbatch, and that looks good, but I haven't watched it. The Harder They Fall is basically an all-star black cast in a Western. And it's...
Oh, I did hear of this.
And it's fantastic.
Does it have Idris Elba in it?
Yes, Idris Elba and Regina King, and I don't even know all their names, but like other black actors
because I was looking at Netflix movies to try and watch to like sort of close out my year, and like with movies that I should watch, and that one was one that I was prepared to try and watch. It's like dude's someone who wronged him is getting out of jail, and so he's rounds up a posse of his friends to go get revenge.
Basically. I mean, wrong. I don't even want to give too much away. Just watch it. It's great. The cinematography is good. This amazing use of color in the movie, like as a juxtaposition to the fact that it's it's a black cast of Western, in a Western movie. There's already this sort of in a little bit of a suggested imposition of color, but like literally the use of color in the sets and the places they are and their the costumes, and it's just so great. It was just so good. It was a fun romp, and it's I mean, again, you're talking about like guys getting blasted. So again, if you like action, it gives you that, and just a solid story. And I just remember it like making a mark where I was just like, this movie's amazing. Like I was in the middle of watching, I was like, this movie's fantastic. Like, and it's just a regular Netflix, like was just kind of released on there. Like I feel like it kind of flew under the radar for how good it was. But yeah, this is my number two.
I don't blame you for it being your number two. And guess what? You already spoiled your number one.
Oh, yeah. I have spoiled my number one. So we'll just get right into it. It's Shang-Chi, Legend of the Ten Rings. And I mean, hey, this movie, it's not an A+ necessarily. I had criticisms for it, which even like the more I reflect on it, I'm like, it's more like an A movie for me now. But it was just so dang good. Superhero movie. Just, I mean, yeah. Ryan already said some of the main things that one could say about it, but it's the best Marvel superhero movie that came out this year, in my opinion. And again, it's not flawless, but like I could even wipe over some of my criticisms and just say it's just good. It's not the best Marvel movie ever made, but it's in my probably like my easily my top 10 and probably my top 5.
which I mean, that's saying something. Again, it's my highest ranked Marvel movie of the year, and like I think quite deservedly so. It's not my favorite Marvel movie of the year. It's my second favorite. Putting it on my list, I did put it above Spider-Man. I have bias towards Spider-Man though. So this brand new character being introduced, having like punching on the same level as this Spider-Man movie that has all this legacy behind it, and punching way past the Black Widow movie. Like, she's been waiting for a movie for years. She's an established character, and this guy we've never heard of before comes in swinging.
That's even precisely kind of my point with Spider-Man and with Shang-Chi. Is you're hitting it on the nail, or the nail on the head. Is that Shang-Chi is an unknown. Like, he has nothing going for him to make this movie great. The movie just is great. Spider-Man has everything going for it. This movie should have been the best movie of the year. It had everything it needed, but it wasn't absolutely great. And that the fact that it had all that going for it and wasn't absolutely great is just, there's a failing there.
Shang-Chi's big Marvel crossover was putting wait, was Wong in the battle arena?
Yes.
Yeah. So Wong with Abomination,
Yeah.
and Ben Kingsley from Iron Man 3. Those were the big crossovers in the movie up until the very end.
Yeah. And this is I would, make an argument that it's because this movie didn't have any crutches, right? It couldn't, stand on the back of other movies or other characters, that it had to just perform and be a good movie.
And this movie sort of feels like, at least to me, I don't know the experience of the Asian community, but it's almost like the Asian equivalent of like the Black Panther moment, where you get this not only Asian led film, but like the vast majority of the characters you see in this movie are of Asian descent.
Yeah.
Like Ben Kingsley being the whitest guy there. And even him, I think he's not like entirely white.
Yeah, and on that point that you have right there, what I appreciate is that, like Black Panther, this hopefully pushes forward more of a sentiment of that you can embrace different cultures in movies that are, in these different blockbuster films, especially like Marvel movies, superhero movies, and they can be successful for that. Not, it doesn't need to take away. It doesn't need to be like, oh, we're directing this at Asian culture. This is the Asian movie. But it can be reverent of that thing and still be very good by embracing it. And I appreciate, I want to see any culture like being embraced and whatever, again, Thor is like embrace like,
Nordic.
Yeah. Nordic culture, but it's not, Thor is like loosely based on that. It's not like he's a, Danish superhero.
And like the Black Panther and Shang-Chi aren't like actual like lore from these countries. And Shang-Chi actually has a more complicated and problematic history, particularly with his father's character having different names before being.
Yeah. And they're what they're doing. They're like reclaiming him, basically, for the modern age where we don't need to.
He's one of the better Marvel villains.
Yeah,
he stands out as like one of the more interesting like villains of the Marvel universe.
Yep. So that's my number one for the year, Shang-Chi.
Good choice.
Yeah,
I had no complaints. It made my list.
I got to hear your number one now.
Well, you may be able to predict it, but my number one is The Last Duel.
Yep. I was like, if I almost knew it had to be, because I was like, how can it not be in his top 10? Like,
yeah.
Your comment previously was like, this was a perfect movie. So I was like, well, there's only one movie we both agreed on that about.
So in making this list, I had to I tried to give number ratings to everything, and West Side Story had a 9.9. This is one of two movies I've seen this year that I gave a perfect 10 to. The other one being The Father. But this movie, again, I talked about the Rashomon like style of getting the three perspectives. And when you first watch the movie, the Matt Damon part of the movie, which is the first part of the movie, is not the greatest movie. It's kind it is like a little more like classical, like it feels a bit more like what you expect this movie to be. And it's not like it's definitely not bad. It's a good movie, but it's just kind of a good movie. It's just kind of like, oh, this is interesting. Oh, this is kind of cool. And then we get the Adam Driver perspective, and it's like, okay, this is cool. This is, which you could also call like the Ben Affleck part. It's starting to be funny. There's more modern sensibilities to it. We're getting this different perspective on things. And then it sort of culminates in this final section of the movie, the Jodie Comer part of it, and it just becomes fantastic. It like, we see scenes from different perspectives and they become wildly different. You just perceive them. And I feel like you're supposed to sort of anticipate that. But like while you're watching the other parts of the movies, because it's a different perspective, it's hard to even imagine what you're missing until you see it. And then it all culminates with the last duel. And I went into this movie with no excitement to watch a duel happen. I was like, I really barely even wanted to see this movie until I learned of like the interesting narrative style, the Rashomon style. I keep referencing Rashomon. It's an old movie if you haven't seen it. So I wasn't like crazy excited to watch the actual duel happen, but God, does it really set you up to care, to want to see one of these two people succeed in the duel. And the duel that takes place is wild. It's bloody, it's brutal. It is a sight to behold.
And some things I had looked at after the movie is that one, this movie is as historically accurate, based on a true story, and as historically accurate as it could be. Like the people, I think there was a specific person who like kind of cataloged this specific thing, and they like reference with them, and much of it is very historically accurate. Like even the events that we're seeing, like again, of course, much of it is dramatized, but like we're not seeing total fabrications. They didn't just inject all these different events into here for the sake of the movie. Like,
and certainly some of like the humor and dialogue is like punched up to make it more sensible to our times. But yeah, you're right. It's based on a real thing that happened, and that's pretty freaking cool. It again, just like my number 2 movie, it was a box office bomb. Did not do as well as it should have.
Yeah, which is crazy.
But I do expect it to get some award cred. Maybe Ridley Scott for director. I keep thinking Adam Driver deserves an Oscar. Maybe he gets it for this. Who's to say?
Is Adam Driver the Leo DiCaprio of our generation?
I
just keep wanting for an Oscar for 20 years before he gets one.
I hope he gets it sooner than Leo got his. Like Adam Driver is the best actor out right now. Like that's my opinion. And my opinion is correct.
Yeah, Ryan's opinions are actually facts.
But yeah, it's just really good. I mean, Matt Damon's not bad in it, but he serves a specific purpose and he does it well. And that's what I sort of got at, where like even my criticisms of the movie, like the Matt Damon section being a little less interesting, I think it helps to serve it because it's providing a contrast for the following ones to be more interesting and more engaging, because it's easy to not like this guy's perspective and it's easy to think the Adam Driver perspective is better. But once you get the final perspective, then it really colors everything you saw before.
Yeah, it's that. And I basically would agree with you. Is that like the first thing you're watching is like, okay, this is just something, whatever. But every layer adds different nuance, and adds every next section adds layers and nuance to what you saw originally. Right? We're seeing the same story being retold, but we're seeing it's being retold differently. And it's man, you just gotta see it to really understand what we're saying. It is an A+, 10 out of 10 movie. And I never intended to like it this much either. It truly was like a what the was that moment.
Yeah, and God, it.
Yeah, it's the best movie of the year. It might not have been my top 10 movie of the year, but again, this is subjective, and I can't say that like I love the last two. As much as I can say that objectively, it's a perfect movie to me, as perfect as any movie could be. It's not my favorite. I would watch Shang-Chi again. I'm not going to go watch the last two again.
And I if I were to watch The Last Duel again, it would probably be in trying to show it to someone, because it's not that kind of movie. It's not the rewatch like, oh yeah, let's get together and watch The Last Duel.
Yeah.
But it's sort of this singular like cinematic experience that's just like powerful to behold. And I think that's what a lot of the movies that like ranked high on my list were. They aren't necessarily movies that I'm going to go back to and rewatch over and over again, but they were just experiences that as I watched them, like elicited emotions from me and got me to like appreciate this thing that is film. And I love movies.
Hell yeah. And yeah, I mean, that's I remember when I went through the list of movies, I had to just kind of take my initial reactions when I read those titles. And I was like, if I read these titles and it makes me think of a thing, then it's obviously got to be on this list. And that's how I was able to go through it as quickly as I could. Because I mean, I felt it so hard even just rank these things. Like some of these are nearly equivalent in some ways. So it's hard to be like, this one's better than that one because they're all different experiences. But I mean, yeah, some of them just they were easy picks. Shang-Chi, top movie. Heart of They Fall again, like strangely, really excellent movie. It's not strange, it's a great movie. Like but that it's like better than some of these other movies might be a weird thing, but that's even the point, is it's so good and flew under the radar. But yeah, so that is our top 10 list, but we do have a couple honorable mentions. So Ryan, go ahead and you can just go through yours.
So I have quite a few that I would like to sort of highlight. I'm going to try and limit it to 5. And this is sort of in sequential order, like of going up to my favorite honorable mention that almost made the list. Ron's Gone Wrong. It's another animated movie. This is a movie that straight up, I saw that previews for. I'm like, oh, that doesn't look very good. And it's surprisingly good. Yeah, Ron's Gone Wrong. Candyman, you mentioned it. Almost made my list. I briefly mentioned this movie, Annette. Mm-hmm. As weird as it is kind of this like very unique. I haven't seen another movie like it, and I don't know if I will again. And you can watch Adam Driver and Marion Cotillard having sex in it, so that's cool. In the Heights, again, I referenced it before. Great movie. And then your A24 movie, Green Knight, I wanted to bring up my own A24 movie, Lamb.
Oh my God, that movie came out?
Yeah.
I wanted to see it, and I did.
I think it's on Prime Video now.
Oh, wow. I want to watch that.
Yeah. It is got a lot of slow in it. It is an A24 movie, so you got to kind of go into it with that expectation. Mm-hmm. And it's weird. It's weird.
It's A24.
Right? Yeah. But like, it's a very unique experience. I went into it sort of expecting like the Vivitch, like the sort of Black Phillip, because you got the goat, and this is a movie with a lot of sheep action. And I will just say, hopefully you like sheep, because you're going to see a lot of them.
I've never had an opinion on sheep prior, so
it made me like sheep more. I was like, you know what? These things are cute.
Wow. I would like, I mean, maybe it'd be hard to find time to watch that one, just because, I mean, it's kind of like a movie I'd maybe want to lay in at night and watch, and there's probably a bunch of other ones I'd watch before it.
Yeah, and it's one you got to be like paying attention to, because it's kind of slow and methodical at times, and it's subtitled. They're not speaking English.
Yeah. Well, my honorable mentions, I gotta say, Belfast. That movie was movie I didn't really expect to even like or necessarily to go see. I got a free screening for it.
I was gonna go to that free screening, but did not, because I didn't want to drive.
Yeah, but man, it is an exceptional movie, really well done about something I had no concept of, like basically some historical events in Ireland, from a perspective of the director, having been, a child during that time. Yeah. And yeah, just really well done, man. It's just so, yeah, I can't, it's not for everyone. It is kind of like, almost like not quite the same directing style, obviously, as Licorice Pizza, but like a similar, like sort of slice of life of an event. But
it's
like
it's like it's an Oscar movie.
Yeah, it's a movie that I don't know anything about, but without them spelling it out for me, I got everything. I understood what was happening in this history, and because of that, it's really well done. And just good acting, especially by the young boy star. So honorable mention for me there. Don't Look Up. This movie this might be recency bias kind of thing because I watched it last night before we do this podcast. So that movie was pretty good. Leonardo DiCaprio and Jennifer Lawrence. Yeah. So why do I forget her name? I should know that name. And a few like Meryl Streep and Jonah Hill, and I think there might be some other people in there. But it's honestly like it was actually a really great movie.
So I needed to quickly do some counting because we're also gonna touch on worst movies of the year.
Mm-hmm.
This would I don't have a top 10 worst, but this would be my 8th worst movie of the year. Wow. I think it's quite bad.
You think so? Yeah.
Yeah. I think Jonah Hill is the
worst. He's like the worst thing in it.
No, he's the best thing in it.
Is he the best thing in it because he's funny?
Yeah, because he's funny.
Yeah.
Most of the movie's not that funny.
I like sort of. It's not. I like the commentary. Sort of. I like that's what I.
It just felt so like over the top. Like we get it, but it offers no solutions. Again, I don't want to yuck your yum.
No, that's cool. I mean, I just found myself being like, wow, I think it's so almost on the nose in some ways that it's funny, and it's more amusing to me.
The thing that I found most amusing was the recurring thing with Jennifer Lawrence about the snacks. Mm-hmm. That I thought was actually quite funny.
Yeah,
but Mark Rylance, who plays the tech CEO in the movie, he makes a choice in the performance of that character, and anytime he came on screen, I was like, ugh. I paused that movie multiple times just because like I just like stopped like caring about what was going on, and I just wanted to like watch something on my phone for a little bit. Mm-hmm. But yeah.
Again, this might be complete recent. Like, no, I don't think you mentioned like recency bias because you watched them this week. I watched it last night. So.
I just think Don't Look Up is a divisive movie.
Yeah.
Not everyone feels the same way. And it's weird because it's definitely coming from like the more liberal left perspective. And I'm definitely a more liberal left kind of guy, but I didn't think it was very good. Yeah. So, and I like the director, Adam McKay. Mm-hmm. He directed the funniest movie of all time to me, Step Brothers.
Oh God. Oh wow. Wow.
And also
this is no Step Brothers.
And also Vice. Mm-hmm. I think he directed probably Talladega Nights too. He used to have a strong working relationship with Will Ferrell, but he sort of went off into more artsy stuff. I believe he did Spotlight, maybe. I may be thinking of a different movie, but yeah.
And then my last one would be Dune. Right? It was a big, cool. Like I think for the criticism I had for Dune. It was still big and excellent. And again, I'll go back. I want to say this right now that this honorable mention is retroactively erased if the next movie does not deliver on what it's set up. Because honestly, this movie is a big setup, and that's one of the reasons I find it lacking as its own movie. And if the next movie delivers on some of that, then this will seem like a much better and more complete movie, which is why I couldn't possibly put it in my top 10, but I want to mention it. Like, I still think it was.
I think that's fair. I had to really mark it down because you're right. It is just kind of set up. And so I couldn't have in my own consciousness put it on this list because until I see the next movie, I don't know if it's good.
Yeah, basically.
And I think the people that enjoyed it the most were people who already know the Dune story, and they're just like, yes, this is it. They're finally realizing the Dune story they've been wanting to see for years. Yeah.
So that's our honorable mentions. Now we do have some worst movies of the year, some worst mentions.
Yeah.
Right. And I guess I can go with mine first.
Go ahead with yours.
So these are all movies that I left early. Right. Simple as that. Like, hard for me to, like some movies range in how good they are and stuff. But like all these movies, I literally like got up and walked out of the theater and did not even want to finish watching them. One of them I did finish watching it, but like I left the theater early.
Oh, because we were there.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. So one of them's House of Gucci, right?
Wow.
I can't. I'm not here to sit here and say like it's objectively a bad movie, but I was watching that movie and I literally looked over at Emily and was like, "Let's just go." Like I was like, we were both just like, I mean, this is like, again, it's kind of like a slice of life. They're telling some events, but I was just so unentertained. I was so uninterested in what happened. I was like, oh, clearly this is all like going towards something, but I just don't care.
Here, this is something that I find a divisive topic. What did you think of Jared Leto's performance?
I mean, I felt like it was it seemed over the top, but also like I just believe that was the character.
Here's the thing. I think he was the best thing in the movie. I think Lady Gaga does a good job. And Adam Driver, it's probably, of the acting performances he's had this year, it's maybe the least interesting, but I just think it's not a very interesting character. The movie's too long. I wouldn't put it on my worst, but I don't blame you for putting it on your worst.
I just didn't understand the point. I was uninterested. Like at first I was like, okay, cool. We're going to see what happens here. And it just was like, I mean, events were being told, but like I didn't have any reason to really give a fuck. Like
I said it before, if you're going to watch a Ridley Scott directed period piece in 2021 starring Adam Driver, it should be The Last Duel, not House of Gucci.
Yeah, for sure. So the next one would be the Card Counter.
I heard of that.
You heard of that? It's got Poe Dameron from Star Wars.
Oh, Oscar Isaac.
Oscar Isaac, right? If you're gonna see a movie that he's in from this year, go watch Dune, not this one, right? This is another like kind of. There's like no point. It's like a guy that counts cards, but he was also he worked at Guantanamo Bay. And so he's like scarred from that. And there's like a kid that like wants revenge on his like stepdad or something. And it's just like there's some kind of like there's like a relationship that he's supposed to be in, and it just seems so like I don't. The movie is just not very good in my opinion. Maybe someone's like, well, this movie is great. Maybe the reviews that was a lot better. I don't know. I just literally was like, I like stopped watching it, like, and I was like, this is stupid. So I just have to say, honestly, skip it. You know?
Yeah, I think a lot of people did.
And this one that me and Ryan pretty much agreed on, Halloween Kills. Didn't really think it was very good. Thought it was pretty terrible. However, I was talking to my friend Michael Roberts just a couple days ago and asked him what he thought about it, and he loved it. And he is a horror movie buff. Like, he loves horror movies. He watches them all the time. And so in some ways, I like respect his opinion of how good the movie is. And he said a couple things that they didn't change my opinion per se, but I can understand why other people will appreciate this. So that it did improve my opinion a little bit. However, I still I don't really.
You still got up and left.
Yeah, I still literally got up and left to go ask for my my money back, or not my money, but like for at least another pass.
A comp ticket.
It was because not just because the movie was bad, because somebody right directly next to me literally kept making so much noise. It was so obnoxious that like fair. It ruined it for me more. And I was like, I don't care. This movie's so not good. I don't care to see the ending. I'd rather just go get my money back because she distracted me the entire time anyways.
Yeah.
So. But I want to recognize, based on his comments, that I'm not keen on horror movies. And I think that if you from what he said, from a person that really enjoys horror movies and has enjoyed them through the many years of them existing and likes the older ones, that this movie appealed to him. And so I think I don't want to say it's objectively a bad movie based on his comments, because I respect his opinion about them a lot more, but I did not like it. So I would recommend people don't see it. But I mean, from a horror buff, he said he liked it. So I mean, maybe it's worth a watch.
That's
for
fair.
Some people.
So I have a little bit of a ranked list for my top 5 worst. And what's interesting about the difference between our two lists is that, and maybe I'm just a little more positive on movies, and maybe just getting to watch movies in theaters and watching things with people I enjoy being with makes me color movies better off. Because like all these movies, I walked out of thinking they were either good or I quite enjoyed them. But upon thinking about it, or I like them for the wrong reasons. So number 5 in particular is a movie that I straight up left and I was like, oh, I had a great time, but it's a trash movie, and that's Space Jam, A New Legacy. it's not very good.
It's not very good. But I also felt the same way where I was like, I had a good time. And I was like, if you have a good time, that works. But you're right.
But look, like when the Looney Tunes were having a basketball fight and it just kept showing me Pennywise the clown cheering from like right up on the court. Why was he there? Why was Pennywise like one of your main people? The Clockwork Orange guys were like right up front.
Oh, dude, that is one thing. I'm like, why are the Clockwork Orange guys in this movie? That's like, dude,
Look,
I understand you're just throwing out whatever IP you got, but like, come on, you could just omit them. Like
Fred Flintstone's like sort of like up in the back, but you got the Clockwork Orange guys front row ready to watch the Looney Tunes play basketball.
Yeah.
But watching the movie just reminded me how much I love the Looney Tunes. So
it's got some nostalgia boner in it. It's got, again, they're using some familiar. It's kind of like Free Guy, right? Where they were just straight, look at the IP. Look at this stuff that you like. And this is why you like this movie. That's straight up. Like they drew you in with nostalgia and with things that you like and references and stuff. Free Guy, that's why I like Free Guy so well. They do the same thing, but they do it right. They do it in a way that's totally enjoyable and doesn't seem like this movie straight up was just shoving a bunch of stuff that you're like, oh, look, it's all this Warner Brothers, stuff.
The new Matrix movie also does a call out to parent company Warner Brothers in it, which made me think of Space Jam in a bad way. Upon reflection, I think its usage in the Matrix movie is a lot more cutting towards the company.
Yeah, that's part of the whole theme of the Matrix. This movie, which I actually did like this new Matrix movie.
The new Matrix movie. I mean, if you like the Matrix movies, if you like the Matrix sequels, then I think you'll probably like this. I thought it was pretty good. But it's also kind of depressing to think about. We're not talking about the Matrix right now.
Yeah.
My number 4 movie, again, I had a good time watching it. Early on, there's some good laughs in it. Spiral, the new Saw movie. It's just kind of bad. It has a lot of bad acting in it.
Yeah, that's I mean, I can't, again, another one where I can't say it's objectively bad, but I enjoyed it when I watched it. But
yeah, I had a good time. It's not the worst Saw movie, but
I do remember seeing it on my list and being like, oh, that's definitely not. Like, I remember not having a very great, like, response when I just kind of was looking at the names on the list. Yeah. Not to say I thought it was bad, but I just was like, this is definitely not anywhere on my list.
3 for me for worst is Forever Purge. It's the least interesting Purge movie. Like, we've had... They've had Purge movies that felt like they should have been the last Purge movie already. And then this one's like, oh, you know how that other Purge movie ended the Purge? It's back. And I was kind of happy because I liked the Purge movies, but it just, when I watched it, I was like, oh, this again. And I realized it's like kind of like just not the same anymore. Number 2, Snake Eyes. I actually enjoyed watching it, to be honest, but it's just kind of mediocre action movie.
Honestly, I'm going to go back and say, yeah, this movie needs to be on mine. I was excited to see this movie. And just like, I remember actually, I almost forgot how much I didn't like this movie when it came out. I was actually completely shitting on this movie when it came out. And you just said that right now. And it reminded me that, yeah, that movie was trash. That movie was bad. I was excited for that movie. I was very excited to see that movie. And it was just stupid. Like,
see, I wasn't excited. I expected it to be trash. And so it was better than complete garbage to me in watching it. But again, like, if you were excited to see the new G.I. Joe movie, and I mean, Henry Golding's a good actor. Like, he's going to be a movie star. Like, he just needs to pick better movies.
Yeah. That movie is a garbage fire. Okay. It's entertaining because it's on fire. Like, and fire's cool.
Yeah.
But it's literally garbage. So,
I mean, similarly, my opinion for the worst movie of the year, also entertaining because of how bad it is, Halloween Kills. Look, like, I don't think I'm the most keen on horror movies either. I'm probably a little more than you. I appreciate horror for what it is. And Halloween Kills, it is good in the perspective of looking at it as like a sort of camp, like like sort of like, oh, have a good time, like slasher, like B movie. That's kind of the vibe it gives. It's just this like quirky camp fun, like their kills so stupid that you laugh at them. Uh, and the plot doesn't really make sense. And it kind of just it it does all these things that are entertaining to watch, and I had a good time watching it, and honestly I might even watch it again. But what it really does is kind of not honor the film that came before it, and the and that's just kind of depressing because the Halloween movie that it's following up took it it's a horror movie. It's a modern horror movie, so it's not like completely self-serious, and it's not like completely like it has some humor to it, has some levity to it, but like this movie just like takes a dump on that movie, and it's just like, oh, you care about the Michael Myers story? Ha ha ha. No, it's one big joke now. There's not even a point in caring about these movies anymore because he can never die. And there's going to be another movie. Maybe he dies in that one. No, he's not. I like if they find a way to kill him in that movie, it makes this movie worse. And this movie makes the previous movie worse, and it's going to make the next movie worse. It's bad for like transcendent reasons. I would watch it again. It was entertaining to watch. Some of the kills in it are cool. And some of the characters in it are entertaining to watch, but it's bad. Yeah.
I would love Michael Roberts to be able to voice his opinion, just because, I mean, again, it's like, I just respect his opinion. I still think it's a bad movie. I don't like it, but I want him to say how he feels and put it up against your cutting critique.
Like
again, because I basically agree with you on what you're saying.
I think the biggest sin of it is that it had potential, but really what it was this weird like little money grab they had, because clearly they greenlit 2 sequels after the last movie, and maybe they did it because they couldn't fit the whole story into one, and they wanted to get the full arc going from this one to the third one, so they needed a middle piece. No, this was just a cash grab. This movie did nothing. This movie served no purpose that the last movie could not have left off a better note to go into the next movie. And I find that kind of offensive about this movie. But again, I might watch it again. It's entertaining, but it's disappointing. I'm not mad. I'm just disappointed.
Yeah, well.
But what a year for movies. Even
stellar year for movies, though.
Yeah, even the stuff that I didn't like was pretty good. Like Don't Look Up, I ragged on, but there's stuff in it that was good, and I'm sure people can enjoy it. There's stuff in it that's worthwhile.
Yeah.
It's just not my thing.
I just watched it last night. I'm sure it's because I just watched it last night that I thought it was a good movie to mention honorably.
No, but again, I think it's just a divisive movie. I think you will still like it going forward. Like, you enjoyed watching it, and that's not going to be taken away from you. I'm just saying that for me, it was not that enjoyable of an experience. But I can't even say it. I have said it's a bad movie, and I still think it is a bad movie. I think all the movies I just said were bad movies. But yeah, even bad movies can be entertaining and can be worthwhile. One of the worst movies of the year, Old, actually is probably one of my favorite experiences in its own weird way, because it did something daring. It tried something. The worst movies of this year to me were Halloween Kills, Snake Eyes, Forever Purge, Spiral, Space Jam 2. These are all sequels. Or yeah, they're all sequels, or they're all playing off some existing IP and just trying to cash in. And that's sort of the thing that people are always complaining about, how they're just making sequel after sequel, nothing's original. And sometimes sequels are good. I have plenty of sequels in my top 10, but I also have quite a few original things, because that's sometimes people want new original things. And when it's just this jaded remake, rehashing stuff that they're not even trying on, that's when it's should be the cynic in me wants to hate. But even then, I enjoy people still put effort into these things. Even the bad movies, usually someone's trying. And I do want to give credit in that way. But I mean, like the Snake Eyes movie, there's not going to be another G.I. Joe movie for 15 years. So if you like G.I. Joe, sorry.
Yeah.
But this movie kind of crashed the franchise for the third time in the last decade. And they're probably not going to gamble on it again.
Yep. Hey, Matrix Resurrections, I think part of its theme is actually commenting on exactly what you're talking about, sequels and stuff. And they directly kind of reference it in many ways, which is one of the reasons I like that movie. I think its theme and subtext are like artfully done, because it's the Matrix, and it's so it's so aware of itself and its impact on movies in general.
I kind of want to give an honorable mention to the Matrix movie. I don't think it exists in this weird middle ground of it being good and me having things about it that I like. And I listen to like some sort of like critical philosophical breakdowns on the movie, and it kind of makes me paint the movie in a sadder light, but then also like it more. So it's kind of a weird mixed bag with the Matrix movie. But the Matrix movie, as much as it's criticizing the issue, is also a symptom of the issue.
Yeah.
And so, yeah.
But yeah.
I went on a weird tangent there, but
hey man,
overall, I loved most of the movies I saw this year. And I'm going to post a more thorough, full list of how I rank all the movies I've seen for those who care to see. I'll probably just put it on my Facebook, so I don't know how accessible it will be to the podcast audience. If people care to see it and don't have me on Facebook, then
Ryan's Facebook link in the comments below.
I'm not going to do that, but I may comment on the things to put a link to the images, but we'll see.
We'll see.
And I'm excited for the movies next year. Avatar, I think, comes out next year.
Oh God.
I never saw the last one.
But, it's been too long. I don't care anymore.
That's what people are saying, that people aren't going to go see Avatar. But
I mean, I'll probably still see it though.
Do you want to know what the last two movies James Cameron made were? They became the two highest grossing films of all time. So the dude has a knack at making popular movies. So
absolute fucking bangers, bro.
But yeah, I think that'll do it for me.
I think that's it for me. So until next year, folks, this has been Robert.
And Ryan.
And we'll see you in 2022.
Yeah. Hey guys, quick little tagline editors added on note from me, Ryan. After we finished recording this podcast, based on my brother's ranking of it, I went and watched The Harder They Fall, and that would have been in my top 10 had I seen it prior to making my list. Great, wonderful performances. Jonathan Majors as the lead does a great job. Zazie Beetz, Lakeith Stanfield, always a standout. Regina King, Idris Elba. Yeah, the actress that plays I'm blanking on her name, but the sort of androgynous character in the movie, also great job. Great movie, highly recommend. And this morning I watched The Power of the Dog, also great movie, probably would have made my top 10. Benedict Cumberbatch, I think, could probably win the Oscar for best actor. So wanted to add those in. And I also just wanted to really put it out there that we really appreciate anyone and everyone who's been listening to these podcast that we've been doing. I really appreciate it. My brother really appreciates it. If you listen to it on Spotify, they've recently added this feature where there's like poll questions and stuff that we can put out there. So if you want to respond to those when we do them in the podcast, please do. I think it's kind of neat. I would like to hear some feedback from you guys. If you listen on YouTube, go ahead, leave us a comment, like, subscribe, hit the little bell. I don't know. That's what people say, right? If you listen on Apple Podcasts or whatever it's called, leave us a rating, preferably good. Comments always appreciated. And yeah, just thank you guys, and hopefully 2022 turns out to be a great year. Yeah, thanks. All right, that's it. Bye bye.